They say monsters wear masks. Some hide in shadows, others in plain sight. But what happens when the mask is a smile? The disguise is a loving husband. And the crime unfolds not in some dark alley, but inside the warmth of a family home? Chris Watts was not the man anyone suspected. Neighbors knew him as the quiet, polite family man. His wife, Shanann, adored him so much that her social media gleamed with posts about their perfect marriage. 2 beautiful daughters, another baby on the way. The picture was flawless. Too flawless. But beneath the calm surface of suburban Colorado, a storm was brewing. A storm so violent, so unfathomable, that when it finally broke, it shattered not just a family, but an entire nation's trust in the illusion of the perfect husband. On the morning of August 13th, 2018, Shanann Watts returned home from a late work trip. Security cameras captured her stepping inside her home. And then, nothing. She was never seen alive again. By the afternoon, neighbors grew restless. The police were called, and the search began. A mother and her 2 daughters had simply vanished into thin air. But here's the thing about Chris Watts. He thought he could outsmart everyone. He thought the mask would never slip. What he didn't know was that every lie he told, every fake smile he forced, was weaving a rope that would eventually tighten around his own neck. And this story, his story, isn't just about murder. It's about obsession, betrayal, and the chilling reality that sometimes evil doesn't break into your home. It sleeps in the same bed. The day Shanann disappeared, Chris Watts played the role of a grieving husband with unsettling ease. When police officers arrived for a welfare check, Chris welcomed them into the house. His tone was calm, almost detached. He pointed out the missing bedsheets, Shanann's purse still by the stairs, her car still in the garage. Her phone, lifeline of her constant connection with friends, was left behind. To outsiders, it was the scene of a mystery. To Chris, it was a stage. Neighbors noticed something strange. As the officer questioned Chris, he shifted uneasily, folding his arms, looking down, avoiding eye contact. Surveillance footage from next door showed Chris's truck backing into the driveway early that morning. He claimed it was just routine, loading tools for work. But deep down, the walls of his lies were already beginning to crack. And yet, Chris didn't panic. He went on camera, begging for his family's return. With carefully chosen words and a voice that lacked true emotion, he pleaded, "If somebody has her, just bring her back. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here." But here's what made America shiver. Behind that mask of desperation, his eyes betrayed him. No tears, no grief, just a hollow emptiness. Friends of Shanann were quick to raise alarms. She had confided in them about the tension in her marriage, the growing distance. The once loving Chris had become cold, withdrawn, secretive. Something had changed. Something was wrong. Behind the curtain of suburban normalcy, Chris Watts was leading a double life. A secret relationship with a coworker had ignited a dangerous fantasy, a fantasy of freedom, of starting over, of erasing the life he had built. And in his mind, there was only one way out. But even the most carefully staged performances have slip-ups. And Chris Watts's unraveling was about to become one of the most chilling investigations in modern American history. Whispers turned into suspicions, and suspicions turned into truth. Investigators soon uncovered what Chris Watts thought he had hidden so well: an affair with a coworker named Nichol Kessinger. To Shanann, Chris was the father of her children, the man she built a life with. To Nichol, he was a man promising escape, whispering of a new beginning. But in the silent corners of his mind, Chris was building something far darker, a plan to wipe out the very people who loved him most. As days passed and Shanann and the children remained missing, police invited Chris in for questioning. He sat down in the interrogation room, trying to project innocence. But the body doesn't lie. His voice trembled at the wrong moments. He crossed his arms, leaned away, scratched nervously at his skin. Detectives could smell the truth beneath the mask. They pressed him harder. His answers grew vague, contradicting himself in small but telling ways. Why didn't he seem frantic? Why was he so calm? Why was he so rehearsed? And then came the polygraph. Chris agreed to take it, convinced his lies could beat the machine. But when the wires were strapped to his chest, when his heart and breath were measured, the mask shattered. The examiner leaned in close and delivered the blow that would echo across the world. "Chris, you did not pass the polygraph. and there is no way you did not know what happened to your family. At that moment, the air in the room changed. The facade cracked. Chris Watts, the man who pretended to be the perfect husband, was cornered. And monsters, when cornered, reveal their true face. But what Chris admitted next would horrify even seasoned detectives. Because the story he told wasn't just about murder, it was about betrayal so unthinkable, so merciless, that it stripped away every illusion of humanity he once wore. Cornered, exposed, Chris Watts finally let the mask slip. But even in confession, he tried to twist the narrative to control the story. At first, he claimed Shanann had killed the children, and in a fit of rage, he killed her. A desperate, pathetic attempt to shift blame onto the very woman he had betrayed. But detectives weren't buying it. Piece by piece, the truth bled out, and what emerged was darker than anyone imagined. On that August morning, while the world still slept, Shanann Watts returned home from her business trip. Exhausted, hopeful, unaware she was walking into her own execution. In the early hours, Chris confronted her. A fight erupted, his mind consumed by the fantasy of a new life, a new woman, and a future free of responsibility. And then, he did the unthinkable. He strangled Shanann, the mother of his children, pregnant with their son. As life slipped from her body, upstairs, two little girls stirred. Bella and Celeste, tiny voices asking for their mommy. But Chris wasn't finished. In a cold, calculated horror, he wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet, loaded her into his truck, and carried his daughters along for the ride. Imagine it, two little girls, strapped in their car seats, whispering to each other, still innocent, still hopeful, as their father drove them to their final fate. At an oil field where he worked, Chris buried Shanann in a shallow grave. And then, with hands that once tucked his daughters into bed, he smothered them, one after the other, their small bodies discarded in crude oil tanks, hidden away as if they were nothing more than waste. This was not a crime of passion. It was not a moment of madness. It was choice. Cold, ruthless, final. The mask was gone. The perfect family man had killed it all. The weight of Chris Watts's lies finally collapsed on him. On August 15th, just 2 days after Shanann and the girls were reported missing, he was arrested. The man America had seen on television, pleading for his family's safe return, was led away in handcuffs. The shock was seismic. How could he, the soft-spoken husband, the seemingly devoted father, be capable of such cruelty? The picture-perfect family everyone admired on Facebook was nothing but a carefully painted mask hiding rot beneath the surface. The community mourned. Friends wept for Shanann, remembering her as a loving mother who worked tirelessly to provide for her children. The little girls, Bella and Celeste, became symbols of innocence stolen too soon. An unborn baby Nichol, a life that never even had a chance to begin. America was transfixed. This wasn't just another crime story. This was betrayal at its deepest level. A husband who murdered the very people who trusted him most. News outlets replayed his interviews, dissecting every word, every expression, every hollow plea. The chilling realization hit: he wasn't begging for them. He was covering his tracks. In court, Chris sat silent, shackled, no longer the man who smiled in family photos. No longer the illusion. He pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. 5 life sentences, without the possibility of parole. But the punishment could never match the crime. No cell, no sentence, could ever undo the screams, the terror, the betrayal his family endured. And yet, the horror of the Chris Watts story doesn't just lie in what he did, but in what it revealed, that sometimes, evil doesn't come as a stranger in the night. Sometimes, it's the smile at your dinner table. Sometimes, it's the man holding the camera in a family video. Sometimes it's the person you trust the most. The story of Chris Watts is not just a crime. It's a mirror, a reminder that darkness doesn't always lurk in alleys or hide behind masks we can spot. Sometimes it smiles at the dinner table. Sometimes it kisses you goodnight. Sometimes it says, "I love you," while quietly planning your death. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, Nichol, for lives erased by the one person meant to protect them. A father who chose destruction over love. A husband who chose selfish fantasy over family. A man who killed it all. And here's the haunting truth. For every Chris Watts we know, there may be others we don't. Families smiling in pictures. Neighbors waving in driveways. secrets buried just beneath the surface. So the question lingers, how well do you really know the people closest to you? This is not just a story to be remembered. It is a warning, a reminder, a scar that will never fade from America's memory. And if you want to uncover more chilling truths, stories that shake the soul, stories that make you question everything you thought you knew, then don't just scroll away. Subscribe, because the next story may be darker than this one.